our show. Welcome and thank you all for coming. And before we begin, I want to thank the Heimwitzes for all the work that they put in to coordinate not only this event, but so many other events that we have in our show. We're very blessed to have Sarah and Moshe doing so much behind the scenes. And our show wouldn't be nearly what it is without the efforts that you and your wife put in week in and week out, particularly with Mishmar. One of the main characters of Lag BaOmer is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who goes by the acronym in many circles of the Rashbi. Tonight I'd like to present what is one of the Rashbi's more famous Divrei Torah, and I'd like to show how I think this Divrei Torah represents and reflects the character of Lag BaOmer, and discuss how this lesson can carry us into the rest of the year. Masechah Sota on Daf Yud Amud Beis, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is quoted as saying, "A person should allow themselves to be thrown into a fiery furnace rather than embarrass someone else." And the source for this idea is an enactment, not enactment, it's a account in Parshas Vayeshev. We're not going to go into the details now in the interest of time. Where Tamar, Yehuda's daughter-in-law, is about to allow herself to be burnt rather than embarrass her father-in-law. This idea that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is highlighting in this account is the importance of Ahavas Yisrael, of loving our fellow Jews, and of Kavod HaBrios, the human dignity intrinsic among every member of mankind. And a number of other teachings from the Rashbi that highlight this theme. We're not going to go into them now in the interest of time, but this is not, the account of Yehuda and Tamar is not a one-off that Shimon Bar Yochai teaches about. It's a theme that we see throughout teachings of the Rashbi, throughout Shas and Medrash. And I think if we take a step back and reflect on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's pedigree, this probably wouldn't be surprising, because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is one of the 5 Talmidim that Rabbi Akiva restarted the world of Torah with after the infamous plague where 24,000 Talmidim, students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, passed away, as Chazal say, that they didn't treat each other with respect. Whatever that means when you have a group of elite Torah scholars who are learning together, whatever the level of respect and professional, I'm going to go with respect for lack of a better word. Sorry? Courtesy, there we go. That's a good one. Thank you. What does that count with in Scrabble? Anyway, so professional courtesy, respect, working and learning together. On their level, they didn't have it, and God held them to account for it. Rabbi Akiva, among other things, is known throughout the Torah as having explained the idea of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, which we learned in last week's Parashas Kedoshim, the latter half of Parashas after Kedoshim. As Rabbi Akiva says, Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. This is a very important rule that operates throughout the Torah, and I think it's apropos that one of Rabbi Akiva's prized Talmidim, who picked up the remnant of the legacy of the 24,000 students in the cohort that came before him, to take that legacy and to emphasize throughout Shas the idea of Kavod HaBrios, the idea of Ahavas Yisrael, the idea of Shalom, takes us to where we are today, before the Rashbi's Hilula, which brings us full circle, because one of the ideas that Chazal entreat us to focus on during this time period is the idea of having kavod for each other, the idea of respecting one another, the idea of Ahavas Yisrael. To rectify the flaw that Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim had, that they were held to task for during this time, brings us full circle to the holiday that we're on the cusp of. Because perhaps when we're celebrating Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on Lag BaOmer, the day in which Rabbi Akiva's students, Chazal tell us, stopped passing away, because of his emphasis on Kavod HaBrios throughout Shas and Kabbalah and Medrash. Chazal tell us that the second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because of sinas chinam, because of baseless hatred that took place amongst Klal Yisrael. Which, on some level, is an extension of the idea of shalom nagu kavod zeh bazeh, that the Jewish people didn't have respect for each other, they didn't appreciate one another, they didn't have love for one another. So we ended up with the catastrophe of the Beis HaMikdash being taken away. And it follows that if we learn the lesson of Rabbi Akiva, we learn the lessons of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the idea of having kavod habrios, the idea of not being malshin panav b'nei chaver b'rabin, the idea of not going out of our way to embarrass one another, will be rectifying the deficiency that led to Klal Yisrael suffering the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and we'll be able to bring the Geula one step closer each and every day.
Why is there such a fuss made about Rashbi? We don't find any other great leader, we don't find any other tzaddik, a great leader, about whom a fuss is made as much as Rashbi. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Jews come to Miron to dance, to celebrate. And Rabbi Akiva was Rashbi's teacher. We don't do that for Rabbi Akiva. We don't do that for Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi or for Rashi, for any of the great Bnei Yisrael of the past. Nothing can compare to what we do about Rashbi. What's so special about Rashbi? Well, Rabbi Ofen already alluded to the fact that he introduced the idea of Ahavas Yisrael in a stronger way. He wasn't the only one who emphasized Ahavas Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva himself was the one who says, this is the major principle of Torah. So what's so special about Rashbi? To answer that, the Shalah says that whenever there's a Yom Tov, we always have to find a connection to the Parsha of the week. This week's Parsha Emor has a reference to all the holidays, all the biblical holidays, and the Mefarshim show that it also has hints to Chanukah and even Purim. What about Lag BaOmer? Where's Lag BaOmer hinted in the Parsha? Anyone want to? Yes? It's very, very clear, almost very clear. It's a very clear hint. At the very beginning of the Parsha starts off by saying, Emor alakohanim b'nei Aaron v'yamarta aleihem. Speak or say to the Kohanim, the children of Aaron, and say to them. Why the repetition? Say to them and say to them. Why couldn't you just say to the children of the Kohanim, B'nai Aaron, and as follows, about not becoming tamei, not coming in contact with a dead body. Why the repetition? So Rashi, quoting Chazal, gives the answer. It says, "L'hazhir hagdolim alaktanim," to enjoin, to admonish the adults over the minors, over the children. In other words, simple meaning is that the adults have to instruct the children to be conscientious about this law, about not becoming tamei if you're a Kohen. What is the words of Chazal? Lahazhir hagdolim alaktanim. What is Rashbi known for? He's known for being the author of the Zohar. So the word lahazhir doesn't just mean to admonish, to enjoin, it also means to bring light. And that's what Rashbi did. Rashbi is the one who introduced this divine light into the world, and that's one of the reasons given why there's a custom to make bonfires on Lag BaOmer, because Rashbi is the one who brought this light into this world. Lahazhir hagdolim alaktanim. But what does that have to do? Lahazhir hagdolim, to bring light, the elders should bring light into the minors. What's the connection to Rashbi? So one connection is, what is the definition of gedolim, of adults, and ketanim, minors? We're talking about people, chronologically, there's older and there's younger. But there's also another way. There are two mindsets, there are two dimensions There's a dimension, an adult way of looking at things, an adult way of learning Torah, an adult way of understanding things. And there's the minor, there's the way of immature understanding. And there are many levels of that, many relative to one level, another level could be minor. Who is the one in Shas, in all of Shas, that emphasizes probing beneath the surface to find the reasons for the commandments? And based on the reasons, that's how we determine the scope of the commandment. Reb Shimon, Darshina and Taima Dekra. Reb Shimon is the one who interprets the reasons of the psukim. His level was Gedolim, his level was to shed intellectual light, mature and intellectual light, on the minor, on the people who are on a lower level. But there's another dimension to that. The Rambam, in Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, talks about Ma'aseh Merkava, the mystical teachings about the divine chariot. The Rambam interprets it with Aristotelian metaphysics, but everyone understands that Ma'aseh Merkava are the teachings of Kabbalah that Rashbi revealed. So the Gemara says, and the Rambam applies it to this, and he says that Davar Gadol, what is considered to be a major thing, what is considered to be a sophisticated thing, Ma'aseh Merkava, the act of the chariot, the mystical teachings of Judaism. That's the Davar Gadol. What's Davar Katan? The Gemara says, Havaya is the Havaya V'Rava, the debates between Havaya and V'Rava, the laws of the Torah. So the Rambam explains the laws of the Torah had come first, because you can't live your life without knowing the halacha that guides your life and tells you how to live your life. But nevertheless, what do we call the Gadol, the Davar Gadol, the great things? The mystical teachings of Torah are the great things. And that's what Rashbi was responsible for through the Zohar, and through the dissemination of the secrets of the Torah, the mystical teachings of Torah. He took the Gedolim, he took Ma'aseh Merkava, he took the deeper secrets of the chariot of Kabbalah, and he introduced it to the world for the first time, that this wisdom started to penetrate into the outside world. To bring the Gedolim, the higher, sophisticated, mature, even secret level that was elusive beforehand, nobody except for the select few were able to access this. He made it more acceptable. But what does that mean? What that means, we know that Adam and we're going to go back in history. Some of you may remember Adam and Chava. Adam and Chava partook of the forbidden tree, the tree of Eitz Hadas, Tov Ra. And then they were banished from Gan Eden, lest they will partake of the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life, and they'll live forever. The Zohar says that these are metaphors. Of course, they mean literally, but they're also metaphors. The Eitz Hadas, Tov Ra, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, represents the laws of the Torah. Because the laws of the Torah, and the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, doesn't mean chas v'shalom that the laws of the Torah are tov v'ra, they're a mixture of good and bad. It means they are given to us living in a world in which there's good and bad, and it's for us to refine that world by living a life in accordance with Torah. That's the Eitz Hadas. But because it deals with mundane things, it doesn't last forever. The influence doesn't last forever. You need the Eitz HaChaim. What is the Eitz HaChaim? The tree of life represents the secrets of the Torah. That's the tree of life. That's what Rashbi says in Zohar. The Eitz HaChaim represents the secrets of the Torah. And when you partake of the secrets of the Torah, you overcome death. You live forever, which will happen in the days of Mashiach with Chiyas HaMesim. So that's the connection to Lahazir HaGdolim Al Aktanim, to bring light to the mature over the minors in the context of not becoming Tameh. Why can't a Kohen become Tameh? Because a Kohen, being and you have a lot of Kohanim here, the Kohanim are in a higher level, that they're more connected to the Eitz HaChaim. They have to defy death to the extent that we're capable of doing now. They're the models of the Eitz HaChaim. So who is the one who brings the Eitz HaChaim into this world that was heretofore concealed, heretofore meaning up until the Rashbi? It was the Rashbi. When the Rashbi came into the world in the 2nd century, this was shortly after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and it brought darkness to the world. And Rabbi Akiva comes, and Rabbi Akiva was the potential to reverse everything. In fact, Rabbi Akiva declared Bar Kokhba as being Mashiach, because he realized this is the opportune time for it. But what happened? It was a reversal. It was a terrible setback. The 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva perished because they didn't treat each other with proper respect. Whatever explanation we give for that, and there are many explanations, it means that the sin of that caused the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, that they had senseless hatred towards each other, was not totally rectified. So there was a terrible reversal, and as the Gemara says, the whole world was shrouded in darkness. And who arrives on the scene at that point? Rashbi. And he sows the seeds of the future. He sows the seeds of Mashiach. He sows the seeds of even of Tchias HaMesim by revealing this mystical secret knowledge. It says, Bnei Yisrael Yotzim B'Yad Rama. The Jewish people left with outstretched hands. How does the Targum translate Yad Rama? V'reish Gilei. That's Aramaic for an outstretched hand. Actually, Reish Gilei means a head held high, revealed. So there are sources that tell us that the word V'reish, if you rearrange the letters, it's the acronym Rashbi, Shimon Bar Yochai. That how do we leave exile? Who had sown the seeds that will ultimately materialize with redemption? It all started with Rashbi. And that's why Rashbi was a terrible critic of the Roman Empire. And for that he had to hide in a cave for 13 years. Why was he so against the Roman Empire? Because that was the manifestation of Golus. The final Golus is the Roman Golus. And since his job was to sow the seeds of redemption, he couldn't tolerate the Golus of Rome. The other Tanaim, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, were not as adamant about how terrible Rome was. They could make some accommodation. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai couldn't, because his role was to bring about the energy of the Geula. And now we can understand, and by the way, the Hebrew Yad Rama is used to describe the Ramah. Bnei Yisrael Yotzim B'Yad Rama. Yad Rama, I don't know who originated that saying, that it refers to the Ramah, Moshe Isserlich, the one who, the Ashkenazic authority who annotated the Shulchan Aruch. But isn't it interesting that when is the Ramah's yahrzeit? Lag BaOmer. So on Lag BaOmer we have V'reish Gilei Rashbi, and we also have the Ramah himself, whose yahrzeit was on Lag BaOmer. It's an interesting thing. How much time? It's an interesting thing. There's a dispute whether you're supposed to say BaOmer when you count the Sphira or LaOmer. The Ramah Paskins is supposed to say BaOmer, and others say no LaOmer. That's how we do it. We say LaOmer, most people. But on Lag BaOmer, what do we say? BaOmer. Why? In deference to the Ramah, whose yahrzeit is in Lag BaOmer, we follow his opinion. It's BaOmer. I don't remember where I heard that, but I heard that. So when we talk about Rashbi, he's in a totally different category, because he's the one, the person who breaks through the first barrier, and he starts to introduce the mystical teachings of Torah, that introduced the dynamic of Geula, of redemption, and that's something to celebrate about. And that celebration itself, we pray to Hashem, will lead us ultimately, without any delay, to the final redemption.
For arranging this. It's a beautiful community event before Lag BaOmer. Unity of the whole community with words of Torah right before Lag BaOmer. What better thing could there be? So we spoke about Lag BaOmer and connection to the Parsha of the week. Now we're going to connect it to the day of the week. So this year Lag BaOmer is on Erev Shabbos. Not every year is Lag BaOmer on Erev Shabbos. For the women it might be a little bit harder, more difficult, preparing and cooking and making bonfires. It's a busy day tomorrow.
Hoping out at the same time.
Hoping out at the same time. So what's the significance of Lag BaOmer being on Erev Shabbos? So what do they have in common? What do they share in common? So, start with a story that happened when Lag BaOmer was on Erev Shabbos, going back to 1923. And everyone is traveling to Miron. They're going, this is in Eretz Yisrael, they're traveling from far and near to get to Miron, to the kever of Rashbi, to be there for Lag BaOmer. Now, when it's on Erev Shabbos, and the transportation is not like the way it is today, today's probably also a lot of traffic, but if you want to get back home for Shabbos, you have to leave early. Either you have to come Thursday night, or you have to leave early Friday morning. But there are some people that say, why rush? Let's stay there for Shabbos. You know, we could celebrate Friday and Shabbos. We'll extend Lag BaOmer. So a lot of people come also to do the upsharon after 3 years old. So even some families were coming, and they said, we'll camp out over here. We're going to stay here for Shabbos. So Friday, Lag BaOmer, everyone's celebrating. It's very exciting. Shabbos comes, and the mood is so happy, so elevated. The Shabbos after Lag BaOmer in Miron by Rashbi. What better place is there to be on Shabbos? So you have Friday night, Kabbalah Shabbos, you have the meal, then you have Shabbos morning. You have some people that come very early to shul, some people a little bit later, the different minhagim based on tradition. Shacharis and Musaf, and very, very happy spirit, very good atmosphere. All of a sudden, they hear crying. There's yelling, there's crying. What happened is a woman brought her kid for the upsharnish, and he got this sickness, and he unfortunately passed away. And everyone's spirit was broken. This is terrible, Lag BaOmer, the Shabbos right after, in the middle of Shabbos. This was very, very sad. To make things worse, this was under the British mandate, and there was some police and patrolling there, and you hear that there's a sickness, there's a pandemic, we have to make a quarantine. So they locked people up. You can't go here, you can't go there. Families were separated. It was very, very, very hard. But there's still some people crowded around the kever of Rashbi. They're davening, saying Tehillim, whatever they're doing. All of a sudden, the sea of people splits. And this woman, she's carrying her baby, her kid, in her arms, and she places him right next to the kever of Rashbi. And she says, Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon, I came here 4 years ago. I needed a bracha to have kids, and weren't able to have kids. And I promised that if I'll have a kid with Hashem's help and with your bracha, I will bring him here for the upsharnish, 3 years old. And I came here, I fulfilled my promise. What is this? And she left the baby there. You could hear a needle drop. It was quiet. She left the room. Maybe there were still some people there. A little while later, they hear a baby, a kid, calling out, I'm thirsty. The same kid passed away. He's calling out, Mommy, I'm thirsty. This is a real story. The person that was there, this is recorded by a person that was there, and he says, I witnessed this. This is a miracle of Rashbi, that happened many years after Rav Shimon Bar Yochai passed away. So this is a story related to when Lag BaOmer is on Erev Shabbos. But what does it mean? What is this about? So Rabbi Greenberg mentioned one of the big things of Rashbi is the Zohar, teaching of Kabbalah, of the secrets of the Torah. Now, the Zohar is a big secret. For over 1,000 years, they didn't even know where the Zohar was. They didn't know. It was only revealed much later, until it was printed. Till we got it was much later. So, why are we so lucky to have the Zohar? These days, you can just type it online. You can read the whole Zohar in English, just on your phone. How are we so lucky that we have the Zohar? And the generations before that, even the other Tanaim, maybe they knew of it, or other people, many, many great rabbis, many great people that you would think are much greater than us, how come they did not have the Zohar? And we have all these teachings of Kabbalah. So there's many explanations for this, but one of the explanations is that the 6 days of the week correspond to the 6,000 years that the world exists, and then we have the 7,000, which is the times of Mashiach. Now, in Erev Shabbos, there's a halacha that you're supposed to taste a little bit from the food of Shabbos. A little bit of gefilte fish, a little cholent right before Shabbos to get a taste of Shabbos. So when Mashiach comes, it says that the whole world will be full with the knowledge of Hashem. We'll all know the secrets of the Torah. So right now, because we're getting so close to the time of Mashiach, we have to taste a little bit of that on Erev Shabbos. So Lag BaOmer, which is so much connected to the Zohar and to Kabbalah, and coming on Erev Shabbos, we're getting ready and preparing for Shabbos, this is really the same idea. They share the same idea. So we're talking about the Zohar, maybe we'll try to learn a little bit Zohar. Is everyone 40 here? We have permission to learn some Zohar? So I have a handout, but there's enough copies. Just, So sometimes we have this fear of studying the Zohar, but not all of it is that scary. There are parts that you have no idea what it is, but there's some parts that you could try to think that you know what it means. So this is from Parshas Emor. This is the Zohar on this week's Parsha. And who's the author? Who's the one speaking? Rabbi Shimon. So perfect piece of Zohar. So we have in the pasuk in the parsha, it speaks about the Yom Tovim, all the holidays. It says, speak to the Jewish people, Moyadei Hashem, these are the festivals of Hashem. Asher Tikru Oisam Mikroi Kodesh, call them callings of holiness. Elohim Moyadei, these are my festivals, these are my holidays. So we have Shabbos, we have Yom Tov, and we have weekday. So Rabbi Shimon gives a mashal. Rabbi Shimon gives an example. If you look on the bottom of the English, it won't scare you with Aramaic and the Kabbalah. He says, imagine a king who invites an honored guest and says to his court, on all the other days, each of you is in his own house, occupied with his work, business, or duties in the field. But on my special day, you set everything aside to rejoice with me. Now, I have invited a very honored guest, and I desire that you engage in no work at home, in business, or in the field. Instead, I want you all to come together, as you do on my special day, and prepare to receive this guest with smiles, joy, and praise. So we have here days which people are busy with work, with business, in the field. Then you have the special day, Hashem, the king says this is my special day, but then there's a day when there's a guest, the king's special guest. And the king says that on the day that my guest comes, I want you to treat him with respect. He says, so says Hashem to the Jewish people, on all other days you are engaged in work and business, except on my special day, the Shabbos. Shabbos is Hashem's special day. Now I have invited a very honored guest. Therefore, receive him with joy and prepare a special table for him, just as you do on my day. This is Yom Tov. Yom Tov is a day where Hashem has a special guest. I'm not sure exactly what level this is referring to, but Hashem says that we should take off from work. Why? In order to honor Hashem's guests. This is what it says, you shall invite them in their appointed time. So, how difficult was this? Pretty straightforward Zohar. Now, the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, he was a great Gaon, a great genius, but he was also a very big Kabbalist. And he would learn the Kabbalah with the same, focus and precision that we study the Torah. And you have an extra letter, an extra word, or a missing letter and a missing word, that's a question that needs to be explained. So he's bothered by something over here that in the parable, in the mashal, and then what it's used as an analogy for, there's a slight difference. You notice it says that during the week we're busy with three things, with work, business, and duties in the field. But when it came to explaining the way it reflects by Hashem and the Jewish people, it says only two things, work and business. What happened to the field? If you give three different examples, it's precise. So how come in the mashal, in the analogy, it said three things, and then when it speaks about the Yom Tov, it just says take off for work and business. So explains that in Kabbalah we know that there's 4 worlds. We live in the world of Asiya, the world of action. That's the world we know. But beyond this world, there's another 3 worlds. One is called Yetzirah, world of formation. Above that is Bria, creation. And above that is Atzilus, emanation. Now, we are in the world that has the most evil. Above us, the world has majority of evil but has good. Then in Bria, it's like half and half. In Atzilus, in the highest world, there's no evil at all. It's all good. So when we speak about work, what are we working on? We're dealing with, like Rabbi Greenberg said, good and evil. Eitz hadas, toiv v'ra. So there's 3 different types of work. There's work. You know, when we say work, that's like really hard work. That's down here. That's in the lowest world. When we say business, you know, people do business. It's a little bit elevated. That's the world above that. When we say duties in the field, that's even higher. That's in the world of Bria. You know, we all survive on bread. Bread is very important. Bread is our life. So that's the 3 things. There's work, business, duties in the field. Now that we do on a regular day. On Shabbos, we don't do work or business. However, we do something in the field. We know that Shabbos, that says in the Gemara, the different rabbis, and we also know about the Arizal, he would go to greet Shabbos in the field. So if you look very closely, he says, you are engaged in work and business, except on my special day, the Shabbos, you don't even need to say the field. That's the field. When we say work and business, that's the regular 2 things we do during the week. But Shabbos, we're still in the field. We're still connected to the field. Now, this connects also to Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer, you know, it's tradition that kids go to the field, go out to the field. You know, so that's why we have all 3 things. We have work and business and my special day, which is also about Shabbos. So we have the field as well. So nothing is missing over here. Everything is precise. But what's the message over here? What do we take from this? So Shabbos is a day that we stop working. We stop doing business. We're still in the field. But we also take the Kedusha of Shabbos, we take the holiness of Shabbos, and we try to bring that back into the work, into the business, into the field. Shabbos is not just a day where we run away, it's about bringing the holiness of Shabbos back into the week. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was called Shabbos. He was so holy, so special, that his other rabbis, his other colleagues, they would call him Shabbos. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, he was so much into Torah. Torah was his occupation. His whole life was Shabbos. So what could we take from him? We're not Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. But we have the ability that when we take some time to study Torah, we could make a Shabbos part of our day. We could take a regular weekday, and when we focus fully on the study of Torah, we turn off our phones and we focus on the Torah that we're studying, we could have a Shabbos in the weekday, a miniature Shabbos like that. Another idea is that Shabbos is a day where it's not so much about the world. On Shabbos, it's a day we focus on Hashem. It's a day that we realize that Hashem created the world. He, 6 days he made the world, and then on the 7th day he rested. Shabbos is a reminder that Hashem is creating the world. It's not just about what's going on in the world, but there's something that's running it. Hashem is involved. So we know that it says B'chol Masacha, everything that we do should be L'Shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Then there's a deeper level, B'chol D'rachecha Da'eil, in all your ways you should know him. Which means there's a certain level on Shabbos, when you're eating cholent, it's a mitzvah. And if you eat cholent during the week, it might not be a mitzvah, but on Shabbos, eating is a mitzvah. On Shabbos, sleeping is a mitzvah. It's Einik Shabbos, it's elevated. And Rashbi, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, is telling us a message that we should take that spirit of Shabbos and bring it into the week. That when we eat, we should have in mind, I'm going to say a bracha on this. I'm going to elevate this. I should be able to study Torah afterwards. To kind of bring the Shabbos, to bring that holiness of Shabbos and elevate our weekday, both through studying Torah during the week and through elevating all our actions to be in the Shabbos mode. So we should all take this inspiration from Lag BaOmer, Erev Shabbos, and Shabbos, and continue it, and with this full merit to the coming of Mashiach, which will be the ultimate day of Shabbos and Menucha.
Enjoy refreshments, medical will be in.
It was lovely.
We control the speakers.
What?
I can hear them. Bria is Miotra.
I got mixed up.
It's in it.